What's going on, y'all? Just Haley back again with another video. Today's video is on Koumei. And I needed to get Koumei done before Araxia comes out because there's a lot coming out with Araxia. We've got a new citrine augment that I'm anxious to try. We got some stuff coming out for Kalerva that could be a lot of fun. We've got some stuff for Jade that could be really cool. We've got Araxia herself and then the Valkyrie rework. Now there's a lot of stuff on the plate, which means I needed to make sure that I showed off my girl, my second favorite frame, Koumei, and the build I've been running on stream because I keep getting asked about it, and I wanted to show not only how I run it, but why I really like Koumei. Now, what you're seeing here right now in the gameplay is actually the most nerfed version that I could get with our girl here, and that is because I am not pulling in any decrees. I'm not using the second ability that I have here, even though I do have the ability for the decrees. Omakuji is right there, just not pressing it. I'm also using the augment, which means I have a free mod slot. I'm just not using it. Now I did that intentionally. I wanted to show Koumei at her weakest without any level of scaling with decrees, and the way that I was running her before was very simple over the course of about a 90-minute mission to get 45 decrees. That is with one free decree during that time, and while I was talking with chat and just kind of not really paying too much attention. So in about 45 minutes getting up to 90 decrees. It's a decree every 2 minutes. It's very, very simple, very easy, even faster earlier on. That means that for the most part, I tend to prefer this to bring longer missions with about an hour to 2 hours to 3 hours. I'm going to really like this. You're getting so much value out of the decrees with a build like this, and they are going to stack up very quickly to add tons of damage, tons of utility, and tons of survivability. Everything kind of stacks up to just make a very, very strong build, and it works really, really well with any type of melee build that you want to do, especially with Koumei's passive. But just in general, it's a really fun way to run any frame when you're getting tons of decrees. That's why Circuit is so much fun, and I really like this for Koumei, obviously, because it's her whole gimmick. It's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it. I hope you guys like the build. If you do, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. It helps me out a ton. Without further ado, let's get right into the build and right into the swing of things. So what makes this build different than a lot of other builds is that we're using multiple layers of survivability because she doesn't really need anything else. She doesn't need range, she doesn't need duration. Some people will tell you that she does, some people will throw in a bunch of Archon mods here. We'll get into why I think the Archon mods are a mistake in just a bit, but before we go into that, I'm going to show you guys the build. The build here, we're going to be using the Omakuji's Fortune because we want to get our decrees back as fast as possible, and it's going to help do that. Outside of that, we are going with the triple Umbra setup. Now, you can do 2 Umbras and just throw an Omni over the Omakuji's, or just an actual polarity from a Forma there, and just use a 2 Umbra setup if you wanted to, that's fine. But we really want the armor, we really want the strength, we really want the health. We want all of these things because it synergizes really well with decrees. I wanted this build to be as good with any decrees that she gets as possible, and I really think this gets there. I did drop the Mecha set from my initial setup. That's just because Mecha set, although very strong and it works really well with Koumei, to me has a little bit of inconsistencies if you're playing with a group, and I play with groups all the time, especially on stream. With that, and what that means is that I didn't like the inconsistencies with the Mecha set for that reason, so I did drop it here. We're still going to be getting tons of strength from Blind Rage and from Transient Fortitude, that stayed the same. And then we are also going with the Rolling Guard over Adaptation. I like Rolling Guard because I think it's just a little bit easy, a little bit consistent to keep up everything with Koumei. It's just really nice. Combining it with Brief Respite gives us a lot of extra frames where we're just immortal. All of that on top of the Arcane Blessing so that we can get even more health, a little over 2400. With our armor, it's all going to feel really nice. We're getting out tons of CC. We're using Breach Surge for extra defensive layer because we're blinding enemies as they get within that 18 meters for the Breach Surge to hit. And all of that's really good. It also synergizes with a ton of damage that it's going to spread out, and that's really cool too. The final thing being Primed Flow. I use Primed Flow over Equilibrium because I like being able to use the 4, but if you wanted to use the 1 instead, you could drop Primed Flow, go with Equilibrium, and then you could feasibly flex out your purple shards that I'm going to be running for the Equilibrium effect for just more strength, maybe some more duration if you feel uncomfortable with it. Give yourself some options there. There's a lot of options with this build, and the reason that there's options is because Koumei really only cares about strength, and that's it. The rest of this becomes survivability, what you're comfortable with, and I like just a lot of options, a lot of flexibility, and this felt like it hit all of those for me, and it was very comfortable. No matter how long I went into a mission, especially when you start stacking up tons of decrees, it's just really easy, really consistent, and gets so strong, especially the later in a mission you go. Even with the enemies scaling up, the enemies just fall down because you're doing so much more damage because of all the decrees. If you happen to get some of the decrees, that'll even help with some survivability, give you extra armor, all that kind of stuff, or the damage reduction per decree. All of that makes her even stronger, and it becomes relatively easy to get kind of consistently based on how many decrees you're pulling in and how fast you're pulling them in. at least some level of that becomes very consistent. And I was able to do that, whether it was be a health orb, whether that was creating more health orbs that then created the extra armor, whether it was corrosive stacks giving you armor, all of that kind of stuff, giving you a ton of damage reduction, allowing you to get not only your shields being very tanky, and you can see that they're up very often here, but even that, then you can combine in things like Fortifier on a secondary, which is really nice on her, because then you're getting the Overguard, which is another layer of defense, and it was just really easy. All of that still preserved all of our strength. We're over 430% strength once our impetus is fully procced, which is very easy to upkeep. We have tons of efficiency with that too, to help with the overall energy cost of spamming the 4 if you want to do that, or even just spamming Breach Surge so that you can keep doing that, and watching the cascades that are absolutely gorgeous shred through hallways. It's really fun, and it's really, really easy. Now, I did mention some options, and I mentioned I would talk about Archon mods. Why don't I like Archon mods? Well, although Koumei can trigger all of these Archon mods, the one that I think is the most useless most of the time is Intensify. At its best, you're getting 60%, and that's only if you're healing health. Is she always healing health? No. Is she always healing health with abilities? No. Does she always have health to heal? No, because a lot of the times I'm just full shield. And when that happens, you're getting no value, that's 30%, which ends up being 42% less than just the triple Umbra setup that we run. So that's kind of icky, and I don't really care for that. Now, Archon Intensify can be okay on certain frames, but for the most part, I just find those frames tend to just benefit more from other options of Intensify. Even Precision Intensify can be a bit better in those cases. So really use that at your own discretion. I just think it's kind of useless. Other options would be things like Archon Stretch, but again, I prefer a neutral range on her. I think going beyond that just becomes kind of useless. It's overstacking something I don't need. You're getting over 43 meters on her 4, or if you're using her 1, same kind of thing, but then her 1 has another effect to it. Her 1, Koumei, when you use it, can have up to 200% worth of the range out 60 meters whenever it is used. If you stack up more range, you can only use it once before the second cast will remove some of the threads that you put out in the first place. This makes it harder to double stack in areas and effectively didn't offer much value to me, so I personally didn't like it. With that in mind, Archon Stretch, though it could be really good on Koumei, to me just didn't offer the value that I'd want. When you look at Archon Continuity, the extra corrosive stack is relatively useless because of how many random stacks of elements she's putting out. So to me, while it was again good, and it would have been probably my favorite choice, I'm also not really caring about duration. When it comes down to it, the way that Koumei works, it has a base duration of 12 seconds, which even with a negative duration, we're getting about 8 seconds of duration total. That's more than enough time to move on to my next zone and wipe out whoever was there. Same thing with Breach Surge, we don't really care that much about Breach Surge's duration, and a 20-second duration on Koumei means you have over 14 seconds of an enemy being stuck in your threads with this build, and if you're not killing an enemy within 14 seconds, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter. You're not killing them in 16 and 17 and 20 and 24. At that point, you'd just be better off recasting Bunraku, getting more status effects stacked up onto the enemy and allowing that to go through than it would be to just continue to try to keep them on those threats. You should never end up in those situations. I don't think I've ever ended up in those situations, and I've put a lot of time on Koumei, but if it happens to you, I guess it happens to you. Combine all of that in, and you just don't really need the duration value, much less the extra corrosive proc, although it is maybe the best option. It's again still random. And that brings us into what I think is the biggest trap, and that is the Archon Vitality. Now, why do I think or feel or say that Archon Vitality is a trap on Koumei? That is because Bunraku is not really affected by it, kind of. It'll add 1 extra stack to heat. So if you apply 2 heat procs, it'll add 1 more. If you add 5 heat procs with Bunraku, it'll add 1 more to 6. This means that the overall effect of Archon Vitality gets progressively worse the more heat procs that you apply. Now, it is really good on Koumei, however, honestly, building for 1 ability of hers, and in fact the ability I subsume off, to be clear, just doesn't feel like it's that good, especially when you start talking about sacrificing 22% power strength as well as 80% health that you're getting from using the Umbral setup. While I understand the Umbral setup is a little bit of an investment, I do think it's worth it, and I think it's a very strong effect on Koumei. The effect of the Archon Vitality is only worth it if you're just going to be running a regular Vitality normally. Then Archon Vitality becomes a little bit better just because at least it's something else, and even then it's kind of marginal. The actual effect that you're getting overall is just not really enough, in my opinion, to justify it, though it is maybe one of the ones you could do if you're going for the 1 and removing the 4. That's up to you. It's going to do a little less damage. It's going to do a little less of the overall kind of effect that you want for stacking up your decrees really easily, or for causing those really pretty cascades with the Breach Surge. That's up to you. Personally, I still view Archon Vitality as a trap or a trick. If you're just going to invest in Koumei, run the Umbral build. It's a lot stronger, it's a lot better, and it's a lot safer. I know that's probably a hot take. I know a lot of people are probably going to be really mad about that, but it is how it is. Same thing with people like Varuna, and the opposite with people like Citrine. Citrine is fantastic with Archon Vitality because she inflicts individual heat procs that can then be duplicated, versus Varuna, who's inflicting 10, you're just getting to 11. That's not going to be worth it, ever. Okay, so hot takes out of the way, let's get into Subsumes. What kind of Subsumes do we want to run on a build like this? Well, we have to kind of look at what is available. For the most part, something like Roar feels like it'd be really good, but then we're going to be competing with the negative duration that we run. So if we're running negative duration, neutral range, and very high strength, what benefits the most? In my opinion, that becomes an easy option. It's Breach Surge. Breach Surge also gives us a defensive layer of that blind, which is really good, and then it cascades off of our independent damage ticks from all the statuses that we're doing and stuff like that. It's very strong. In my opinion, that becomes an easy option as the best subsume, but what else can we use if you want other options? Nourish is an option, Zata's Whisper is an option, a little bit longer duration than your typical Roar, so that's pretty cool. You're not going to be affected too much by the negative duration that we're running. The other options that you could run would be things like Sentient Wrath, but Sentient Wrath kind of fills the same role as Breach Surge, while also being a harder frame to get in Caliban, and also being a just win more button without having the same level of an effect of that blind, because it's only going to be a lift on enemies that aren't affected by Overguard and stuff like that. So when it comes down to it, which is best? I think it's an easy option of just run Breach Surge and watch hallways clear themselves for you like the Red Sea whenever you prime with Breach Surge into the 4. It's very easy, very simple, but obviously ultimately up to you. The other thing that's up to you is what ability to take off. I personally love the 4. I think it's very strong. I think it spreads more statuses, and that's really cool. However, the ability to machine gun Koumei is not lost on me, and you can absolutely run that to be able to pump out Koumei after Koumei. You'll get more 666s because it costs less energy, less animation commitment, stuff like that, and it is really nice. When you do get those 666s, you will shred a hallway instantaneously, and then you can keep moving. It also works just fine by itself if you want to use the Koumei into Breach Surge or Breach Surge into Koumei, either way. And now what that's going to do is it's going to make it so that you can put out a ton of statuses on enemies, but the statuses are a little bit more limited. It makes it a little bit harder to get your decrees because you aren't going to be able to just throw your 4 down into a hallway. Know that you're going to get at least a couple enemies of the status type that you need, and you're good to go. Because of the way the threads work, sometimes you won't get those statuses that you want, and that does feel a little bit bad. It does become a little bit of a limitation with Koumei, and that is something that I didn't like to compete with, but it is very strong as an ability just to use Koumei instead of the Banaraku. It's up to you. Pick one of those, subsume them off if you want to keep the decrees on, and it is very good. All this said, I do have another build that I use for shorter missions, EDA and ETA. That is actually my Koumei. It's my Koumid video. It's on the channel. I like that one. It hasn't really changed at all, and it still works very well. It's still my crutch for EDA, ETA if I don't like my frame options. I'll always just bring her out because she makes some of the best options for weapons as well with her passive, just being able to amplify the damage that all of those weapons are going to deal. It's a lot of fun. If you guys haven't messed around with Koumei's passive, it is one of the better passives in the game, and it is super underrated, so definitely check that out too. Just being the cycling apply element statuses on every damage tick from that weapon, it's really, really good. It cycles every minute, and it's really, really strong. Check it out. The other thing worth checking out are the shards, and I haven't changed them since forever ago. We're still running 2 red shards for strength, we're still running 2 purple shards for equilibrium, and 1 yellow for cast speed. There is some flexibility here. If you just wanted to do the 1 purple for equilibrium effect, you certainly could. Run more strength, run more duration, run more cast speed, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you prefer. Lots of flexibility here to choose what you want. I liked 2 because with impetus stacked, it felt really good to make sure that I kind of always had some energy in the pocket. And even then, sometimes I ran out a little bit, so the extra equilibrium just felt like it was really good. I liked it a lot. This is mostly because I don't always keep up my impetus stacks. I'm not great about that kind of stuff, but that's a skill issue on my part. I could obviously get better at that, and it's something that I should just kind of monitor. I'm not used to really looking at that. Realistically, run whatever shards you really want on her. She has a ton of flexibility. If you wanted to add more armor, you certainly could. If you didn't care about the strength strength as much, you could go for that. And then just trust you're going to get decrees that are going to increase that power strength, whether it's via finishers and stuff like that. But really does become up to you. Before I get into weapon recommendations, let me just show you what I'm running on my Arum Spinosa, because I get asked for this build all the time. I love the Arum Spinosa. It's my second favorite melee weapon in the game. I love it. Absolutely fantastic. Definitely run Votive Onslaught. It's the best fan blade stance. We're also going to be definitely running the Condition Overload. For the Riven, I just have an attack speed Riven with electric. That's it. If you just want to run electric there, 60-60, it's going to be fine, and you're going to be able to do a similar kind of idea. You could also, instead of doing blast, go for gas. It's up to you. Prime Pressure Point, if you want to swap that out for a faction mod, you could. I didn't do that here because even though I tend to always show in Mott because of the extra damage that the enemies deal, I feel like faction mods would be cheating here, just showing you a lot more damage than most weapons are going to be able to do. And I love the Arum Spinosa. It works fine by itself. With the faction mod, you're going to cleave through these enemies even faster, but that is up to you. Run that if you want. You don't have to. I went with Prime Pressure Point. It's more applicable on more things. I'm too lazy to swap that out most of the time, so pick your poison, choose what you want to run. I do think it's worth it to run a faction mod if you're willing to do it. I'm just not. Call me lazy, whatever. It's just a little bit more work than I'm willing to put in on my individual weapon builds. And then speaking of weapon builds, what do I recommend for weapons for Koumei? Honestly, run what you are most comfortable with getting her decrees. I personally recommend having things for different statuses, as well as having things that you're comfortable getting headshots on. For this, personally, my favorites are things like the Kuva kohm, because you can spray at head level and pick up headshots very easily, especially as you start stacking decrees and get tons of extra damage, tons of extra ability for that weapon to kill. The other thing that I really like is the Kuva Encore, especially when you start running with things that are going to give you the decree to give you the refilled ammo. It's going to feel really good. You pretty much turn it into an Encore, but with extra statuses and things like that, which are going to feel really good. The other option that I tend to really like is the Galaxian. Feels really nice on her, but really run whatever you're comfortable with. As far as melees, anything melee influence is obviously fantastic, but again, run what you're comfortable with. Run what you have fun with. Run what you are going to be able to get your kills with to get your decrees back faster. Whatever you are comfortable with is going to be the best weapon for Koumei, because she's going to amplify that weapon so much that it's going to get even better. Just make sure you're comfortable getting headshots, wall latch kills, things like that. Although, honestly, within 30 minutes, you're going to be able to get most of those wall latch kills with your abilities instead, and that's going to be really easy. Same thing with slide kills. Mostly you're going to be doing things like breach surge into your 4 and then just slide back and forth through the air, and you're going to get all the kills that you need. It's very easy, very simple, and it works really, really well. Just kind of run that. You can see that for the most part, she just kind of ticks things down with the status damage that she's dealing. And again, this is without decrees, without anything that's buffing that, so it's pretty strong. As for pet recommendations, Hunter Recovery is the biggest thing. Maybe you want to run Meta Ray, but Meta Ray isn't very good in general. I do really like Hunter Recovery because it allows her to not have to care about her health coming back. It's pretty nice. If you want to run a Hound, you could definitely do that, and then just make sure you're running something like Synth Deconstruct to create more health orbs for her. It's going to work with both decrees to make sure that she's getting more health orbs out for those decrees to be able to trigger off of getting more armor when she picks up health orbs, things like that. But in general, you're going to want to make sure that you're getting some level of heal back onto Koumei, because it does help to get your health back from more than just Amamori triggering and giving you health. That's going to be how you're getting a ton of extra overshields and things like that as well, so that is pretty strong. Make sure that you're using your survivability tools that you have, things like rolling guard and stuff like that, and you're going to feel very comfortable pretty much no matter how long the mission goes on. And that really does kind of wrap it up. I'm sorry that this was a little bit of a longer one. I haven't done a longer video like this for a bit, but Koumei's, like I said, she's my second favorite frame. I love this frame. She's so much fun. Her passive is a lot of fun. Both of her builds, both of her kits that I run are really fun. I have two different Koumeis. Both are set up with Umbral Formas. It's 5 between the two, and they both have Archon Shards set up, 10 between both of them, because I use the same colors as well, so you can do the math there. I really, really like how she plays. It's just a lot of fun. It's very easy, very simple, and I don't have to think a lot. And I like that a lot for stream, but I also just like that for how I tend to play Warframe. I like to make builds that kind of play themselves with low effort execution to do a lot of damage very easily, very cleanly, and just have a lot of fun. She's also a frame that I have a lot of fun just taking into those longer missions, because every time by the end of the mission, when you're getting ready to leave, it's been 2 hours and it's time to go, or it's been 3 hours and it's time to go, you don't really want to leave just yet because you feel like a god. And that's really fun on Koumei. The ability to just stack up these decrees more and more and more, and that idea of the next decree being really what's going to set you over the top and really what's going to make the difference. Will it be? Usually not. but sometimes it might be. And that gambler's idea of just that next decree, that's going to be the most fun, the next decree, you're just waiting for it. That's what makes her feel so much fun to me, and that's why I love her so much. Do I always use it? No. Does she always feel really good? Yes. I love Koumei, and I hope you do too. I hope you enjoyed the build. If you did, please remember, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. It helps me out a ton. I look forward to getting some of these new things in my hands to give you guys some new videos coming out next week and the week after and stuff. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have an amazing day. But until next time, do remember that I love your faces. Bye.